Hey everyone, doing a video on Jordan M, the sad clown of the UK Dawa scene. I came across a little while ago, I came across a couple of videos of his where he's doing these little shorts where he's doing like a little comedy skit, him basically being a Muslim character and a non-Muslim character talking to himself and just talking about a particular issue in Islam and giving the most stupid straw man positions of critiques of Islam and giving ridiculous defenses or just outright lies about the Islamic positions on certain things. So he thinks this is comedy. It's so cringe. It's unbelievable. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through a bunch of these. He's got dozens of them. I had no idea until I looked back at his record. He's got so many of these things. So I'm going to whip through a few of them and debunk some of the crap that he's talking, and we'll see how we get on with it. So let's start with the first one. This first one is about capital punishment in Islam.
Yeah, do you about those Muslims that they got capital punishment? They believe they should kill people. It's so barbaric, that religion. So barbaric. What's your opinion on pedophiles? Oh, string them up, bring back the birds for that lot.
Yeah, I mean, this is a terrible beginning. Number one, comparing capital punishment within the Islamic system to, say, the UK legal system. First of all, we don't have any capital punishment here. And in Islam, you can get killed for all sorts of ridiculous things. Leaving a religion, apostasy, you can be killed for under Islamic law. Women who commit adultery can be killed. Anyone who's openly homosexual, committing homosexual acts, can be killed. Anyone who declares that there is no God, so someone who's a public atheist, can be killed. Anyone who desecrates a Quran can be killed. So you just get all sorts of essentially non-crimes that can be that are responded to within the Islamic legal system by a death sentence. Okay, now he's trying to juxtapose that to some kind of random bloke who might say, "Oh yeah, string up a paedophile." Well, yeah, I mean there are certain people like that, and there are certain people who indeed do agree with capital punishment for certain serious crimes. It's a slightly different issue. Number two, I mean, the person that he's trying to portray here, I mean, this is just rhetoric. I mean, most people will say stuff like, "Oh yeah, string them up." They're not literally advocating for some kind of vigilante justice. They're showing their opposition to the terrible crime of paedophilia, you know, the violence and sexual abuse against children. So yeah, this is hyperbole for most people. And again, if you're going to bring up paedophilia, I mean, you're really on dangerous ground, considering that under Islamic law, you can marry a 6-year-old. So yeah, I would stay away from this issue if I was you, because it's not the straw man of the non-Muslim who's coming off bad in this, Jordan. It's you. Anywho, let's move on to the next episodes.
Hey, Jeff, my ex-wife, Stacey. Where's Sharon? Why have you called your ex today? Is she alright with you? Nah, Jeff. Someone used to make me wear a lot of clothes. Used to make me do things I don't want to do. So yeah, I think it's important that you meet her.
Sorry, in case you can't see what this one's about, it's essentially ex-Muslims online. So the Dave character in this is playing the ex-Muslim.
Okay, but it doesn't kind of look like you haven't quite got over it. I don't know what you mean, mate. Well, you've got a lovely new wife now. I would suggest, put your energy and time into that.
I try not to say that any particular thing applies to all Muslims. I always will use that caveat, not all Muslims. But I think there is at least one case where this does seem to apply with pretty much every Muslim that I've ever spoken to. Cannot use an analogy correctly. Okay, Jordan M is trying to use the analogy of an ex-Muslim, as in he's come out of a relationship and he's got a new wife. It is such a bad analogy. It really is piss poor. I mean, he's acting as if all it is when you leave Islam is just you move on and you go get yourself another version of Islam, another wife in this analogy, which is obviously not true, since many ex-Muslims don't pick up another religion. Some do convert to others, but some become atheists or agnostics. So it fails on that level. Also, it's implying that there is no particular reason why an ex-Muslim might want to talk about their experiences. He's just saying like, move on, move on, move on, as if an ex-Muslim might not have some good information about Islam, about their experiences with Islam, particularly for the aforementioned things like the death penalty for apostasy. Even if it's not a death penalty, there's often violence is aimed, or certainly social ostracization and general condemnation of the community. But yeah, often violence and threats and death threats and that kind of thing are aimed at ex-Muslims, particularly in Muslim majority countries. So you're acting like he hasn't got a proper story to tell, like an ex-Muslim, like, oh yeah, it's just like moving on to a new life. No, there's legitimate things that ex-Muslims have to talk about. And this is essentially a really shit analogy to try and say that ex-Muslims should shut up and not bother talking about it.
No chance. The whole world's got to meet Stacey. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wear hardly any clothes doing it. I'm going to go online, I'm going to do podcasts, I'm going to set lots of platforms. People need to know about this. Okay, look, the two of you clearly did get on, but I really think it's time you just moved on. Just be
Yeah, just move on. Don't talk about it. Don't embarrass Islam for all the fucked up things that happen and within some Muslim communities and all the terrible ideology that comes out of the Quran. Yeah, just move on. Don't be too public about it.
your own health. Actually, it's not for me, it's for other people. No, I'm doing it for other people. Creating awareness. Okay, look, I've given you my opinion. You do what you got to do, man. I knew you wouldn't understand, yeah. It's almost like you're obsessed or something.
Yeah, the usual kind of projection argument. Yeah, because you are concerned about how bad Islam looks, you're going to pretend that it's just the ex-Muslims' obsession with Islam, when we all know they wouldn't probably bother talking about it if it wasn't for the obsession with pouring hatred or sometimes violence onto ex-Muslims. If Muslims just left ex-Muslims alone, they just said, okay, fine, it's chill. If you want to leave the religion, cool, go. But and to be fair, some Muslims do have that attitude, but many don't. And certainly the what's prescribed within the hadiths is to kill them. So yeah, your stupid turn to the camera. Again, he does this in every video. This stupid comedy turn to the camera. Again, just makes you look stupid. Just you're acting as if ex-Muslims don't have a legitimate thing to talk about. Anyway, let's move on to the next crappy video.
Since becoming honest, Jeff, how come you believe in religion and all this?
Oh yes, this one. Dave is now an atheist, so this is going to be a laugh.
Oh, yeah, nonsense. I find it unlikely that it will make one chance.
Yeah, and who says that again? I mean, just shows the ignorance of most Dawa Muslims that this is what they think is the atheist position on why they don't believe in God. That the world, as soon as you abandon God, then the idea of God being real, then you just believe the world come about by chance. There's all sorts of different ideas about the nature of the universe, the beginning of the universe, etc. So yeah, it's just a stupid straw man and just shows Jordan M's ignorance on the issue.
Yeah, but we got science now, and Big Bang and all that. You know, the guy that created the Big Bang was actually a believer in God.
So fucking what? What has that got to do with anything? Yeah, most of the great scientists before the mid 20th century had some kind of belief in God. Yeah, because they were raised to. They were all in religious majority societies, often where there would be severe consequences if you were openly atheist. Certainly, if you go back enough centuries. And that was true in the Christian world. You can see all sorts of persecution against those who weren't following the God line. And yeah, also just the fact that it was a far more religious society. So of course, even scientists are going to be religious in those circumstances. What the fuck does that have to do with the fact that science has put a lot of holes in the narrative in terms of whether God exists or not, and certainly whether specific gods exist, like Allah?
Anyway, it was interesting. Down the road there, you walk round a ladder, you would walk underneath it. It always got in my car. What was all that about? Obviously, it's bad luck going under a ladder, isn't it? You want me to have bad luck? Also, you had that house last month you could have bought, but you refused because it had number 13. Jeff, if I live at number 13 house, I might die. Okay, and also you believe in star signs. You believe because you're a Leo, you can't live with certain people, right? My personality is exactly like a Leo. It's true. I read the horoscopes every single month, and it's true.
Yeah, again, a ridiculous straw man, as if the average atheist believes in horoscopes and won't buy a house if it's got 13 on it because they think they die, and will refuse to walk under a ladder. Yeah, I mean, it's true that certain atheists are going to have other superstitions, or maybe even other kind of non-God spiritual beliefs in the supernatural, etc. Yeah, that's certainly true. Do you really think that this represents the average atheist? I mean, what a ridiculous straw man. Again, and the irony is, it doesn't realize doing it. You're making yourself look stupid by making this kind of argument, because what you're basically saying is like, you're comparing these superstitions and putting them on a par with Islam and saying, well, if you believe these stupid things, why can't I believe my stupid things about Islam? So you just make yourself and the beliefs that you hold seem ridiculous by making this comparison. So it's not doing the job that you think it's doing, Jordan. Fuck's sake. Anyway, let's move on to the next one.
Hi, Jeffrey. I've decided to become a liberal. Cool, man. What exactly does that mean? Well, Jeffrey, what it means is I believe in freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and you get to say it. That is your issue.
Yeah, but that's not really the point, is it, in terms of why people believe in freedom of speech? I mean, I'd also just say, I mean, plenty of people who wouldn't class themselves as liberals who also believe in freedom of speech. But yeah, the point is, people believe in freedom of speech because it's the principle of, it's fundamental to be able to live a free life, to be able to challenge bad ideas, etc., to be able to have any kind of uh, any kind of intellectualism and with any kind of integrity. You need to have that freedom of thought and the freedom to express those thoughts. It's not like I believe in freedom of speech because I want to piss people off that I don't like or that I disagree with. I mean, this is it just shows the ignorance that and the lack of value that these Darwin Muslims like Jordan M have. They don't even understand what the value is in freedom of speech. They just think you want to piss Muslims off. I mean, this is how ignorant he is.
Oh, great. Thank you for my opinion on liberalism. Of course, you have the freedom to say what you like. You see, for me, liberalism is gone a bit too far. If you look at our engagement around the world, how we've enforced our kind of democracy in other countries, we've even dropped bombs and millions of lives have been.
Yeah, you're conflating freedom of speech with neoliberalism, which is one way of describing the kind of the international politics that have led to things like the Iraq War and this kind of interventionist mentality of doing these invasions and stuff in the Middle East. One has got nothing to do with the other. Just because the word liberal is in there, one is neoliberal, and you're using the term liberal to describe somebody who is in favor of freedom of speech. That doesn't mean that they're the same thing. Okay, you're talking about international politics there. There are plenty of people, including myself, who believe in freedom of speech, who were dead against the Iraq War and all the other interventions and stuff that's gone on in the Middle East. So this is just such a ridiculous straw man again. It just shows your ignorance. You don't understand the basic meaning of words. And even that, or this is just a deliberate mischaracterization to say that essentially anyone who does believe in freedom of speech also wants to blow Muslims up. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
How dare you say that? How dare you, Jeffrey? I am duly offended. How dare you?
Yeah, so a stupid end to that video as well. There's nothing hypocritical about believing in freedom of speech and also potentially being offended by someone's opinion. The point is that regardless of your offense, you allow the other person to have that freedom. That's all it is, Jordan. If you can't get that, then you're just not understanding the issue. Anyways, let's move on to the next one.
I'm going down Hyde Park on Sunday, Speaker's Corner. Tommy's going there. Great. Yeah, what's Tommy doing there? He's fighting for freedom of speech. There's this Christian lady there again. She rips up the drum, she put holes in it, she dips a mouse in it. But that's freedom of speech. We should be able to do what we want. The Muslims are trying to stop that.
Yeah, and This is talking about Hatun, who is a Christian preacher. Yes, she goes down to Speaker's Corner. She is very controversial in that she damages the Quran. She is completely no holds barred in the criticism that she makes of Islam, Muhammad, the Quran. She's quite happy to break every taboo when it comes to this. Now, you can agree or disagree with her methods. It's not the way that I want to criticize Islam. But she's making the point that Muslims have got a fundamental problem with freedom of speech. And she's absolutely right, because the one thing that you won't see in this video or any follow up from Jordan M is that Hatun was stabbed by a Muslim because of what she does when she goes down to Speaker's Corner. Somebody tried to murder her. So she's kind of got a point that this is a real problem within the Islamic community, that they cannot tolerate freedom of speech of others. Now, in case anyone wonders, you look at some of the stuff that goes on down at Speaker's Corner with some of the Dawa Muslims. They're just as bad as Hatun, the kinds of things they say, the kind of things that they're advocating for. There's this pretense that there is some kind of tolerant behavior that respects other religions, and in terms of the way that the Dawa Muslims at Speaker's Corner conduct themselves. No, there fucking isn't. I mean, they are promoting very hate-filled ideologies. I mean, to be fair, the Quran is full of really nasty stuff. So, I mean, in some respects, they can't really do anything else. But the point is, no one's trying to stab any of the Muslims down there. No one's trying to do any kind of physical harm. They've all got the freedom of speech to go down there and say whatever horrible crap that they want to say. But as soon as a Christian does it, or any other kind of non-Muslim, they take their life in their hands. So it's the blatant hypocrisy of it. Yeah, probably to get the reaction that I just talked about, to highlight the fact that there is a lack of emotional and mental maturity within the Islamic community, particularly the Dawa community. I'm talking about obviously not all Muslims, but particularly your branch of Islam and your mentality of Islam. That means that if anyone does anything to fuck with Islam, you're going to try and murder them. Okay, and she's brave, I have to say, to take the kind of actions that exposes that mentality.
Yeah, you missed the point, mate. Freedom of speech. Don't you get it?
Yes, exactly.
Do what we want, just because it offends people.
Well, again, it's not do what we want. Again, you're complaining we can do what we want. No, you can say what you want. And even that, yes, will still have some kind of limitations. If you try to incite violence against people, then yes, okay, there's going to be consequences for that. And I think you can make justification for that. So even there's going to be some limitations. But the point is, yes, there's going to be a freedom to criticize your religion. Okay. And if Hatun or anybody else owns a Quran, again, it does not belong to you. The fact that you think it was written by your God does not mean that somebody who owns a Quran can't do whatever they want with it. They can damage it, they can drill holes in it, they can do anything they like with it. And you have to grow up and accept that if you want to live in a first world society that actually has any respect for freedom of speech. Because if you can't handle that, quite honestly, you should piss off.
Okay, tell me about why you support Tommy. Oh, well, it all happened, yeah, when there was a homecoming parade for British soldiers, and these Muslims turned up and they were burning poppies. Can you believe that? They were burning them. But I thought you just said the whole thing about freedom of speech and people should be able to do that. That's not the same, is it? It's not the same.
Yeah, again, talking about Tommy Robinson, obviously he's a very controversial figure. He comes from a background of football hooliganism and all that kind of thing, and he's been involved in some various shady things, it seems. But the EDL did not start because of poppy burning. Okay, you might say that's a catalyst event that kind of brought them out in terms of maybe organisation or into the public consciousness, and that's partly because, again, the whole thing of burning poppies and stuff. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a sore issue for particularly a lot of older people in this country, but also, a lot of just British people in general. They see the Poppy Day as honouring the people who died, fought and died, particularly in the First and Second World Wars. So yeah, it does mean something to people, and people get pissed off when disrespectful stuff like that is done. Now, number one, the protest, as far as I was concerned, the EDO weren't trying to kill any Muslims. So it's quite legitimate to do a counter protest as long as you're not threatening people with violence. So that's one thing. But number two, to act like this was the only reason that the EDL came about is just not true. Again, I've not taken a position on the EDL, quite frankly, or Tommy Robinson. You can critique him, you can praise him, do what you want. But the point is, they were exposing the grooming gangs that have now become ubiquitous with towns up and down the country. Um, uh, Mostly Muslims targeting non-Muslim girls for sexual violence. Now, this was basically unheard of in the media until the EDL started talking about it, and the likes of Tommy Robinson started talking about it. Regardless of what you think about the organisation, they exposed it. So the idea that the EDL was just around because of some poppy burning, no, there was deep-seated issues around grooming gangs that essentially started off what became the EDL and what allowed Tommy Robinson to rise to his fame or his infamy, and to reduce it all to, oh, it's just about poppies. Again, it's just a lie. So yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the next one.
So, Dave, I was reading that niqab's been banned in France, and the thing is, when sisters in public, they have to remove their niqab wearing a face mask. Isn't that a bit weird? I'm well in support, Jeff. I'm well in support of banning that thing. It's so oppressive to women. Yeah, they've never spoken to a Muslim woman.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not really the point. I mean, you can look at what's going on in Iran at the moment. Okay, it's not the niqab, but it's the head covering. There's obviously a lot of Muslim women don't want to wear it. Yeah, there are some that might be happy to, and others who aren't. And it is also, in my view, a symbol of political Islam, of extremely conservative, divisive kind of Islam that basically says we want to be separate from you. This is, I find it quite divisive. Now, I'm not actually saying that I agree with how far the French took the ban, but at the end of the day, it's their country. It's for them to decide how far they want to do this. But to act as if there's no issue around these, or that there's no social cost, or that women that there aren't many women who are forced to wear it, just because there might be some women who say, yeah, okay, we don't mind wearing it, or they want to wear it. It's not the point.
How on earth can I speak to a sister who's wearing that around her face? It's really bad for society. You need to be able to see each other's face, otherwise it's really bad. Okay. And the bigger risk is, the security risk. How can you allow people just to go into banks and public places covering their face? Do you have any record of any instances where a Niqabi sister has caused any issue to security?
Well, not particularly a sister, but there's been plenty of examples of bank robbers who've dressed up with the niqab and gone and robbed banks. And you'd know that if you did any fucking research, Jordan. So, I mean, it's just quite embarrassing. I mean, I'll put some links in the description of the video. There was a bank robbery in Canada some years ago. I think there was one in this country. There might be one in America as well. But I'll put some links. There are definitely examples where the niqab was basically used as an aid to robbing banks. And there may have been other security issues that I can't think of as well. So, yeah, there's security issues.
Jeff, I don't have time for this conversation. You ready to come to the end? Dave.
The final facepalm, stupid finish with the COVID mask. I mean, again, you're conflating something which was designed, regardless of people want to argue about the efficacy of how effective it was, etc. of the mask. The idea behind it was supposed to be stopping the spreading of a disease. Okay, that is a world apart and completely unconnected to or unequatable to a religious directive to force women, and only women, let's make that clear, to cover their faces. There's no medical need for it. It is a religious duty, and yes, there are potentially bad consequences for society. So again, showing that is not like some gotcha response that you're doing there, Jordan. You're just making yourself look like a dumbass once again. Anyways, let's move on to the next one. Well, I'm not sure like what one has got to do with the other. I mean, I don't know if you can have sex with animals in Norway. That sounds like something you've probably made up. But I think there are a couple of hadiths that talk about sex with animals, though. So again, I mean, Islam's probably on shaky ground when it comes to this topic. I'll try and find some and see if I can put that in the links in the video as well. But yeah, presumably this is actually about halal, so you know, try and stay on the topic, Jordan.
Halal meat. I'm getting sick of being forced to eat halal. Why can't I have any other option? What's your issue with eating halal? It's cruelty to animals, isn't it? The way those animals are cut, they slit their throat. That's your improvement to make sure you make way to kill an animal. They don't feel any pain because through 3 of their main arteries.
Yeah, that's just a lie. There's not been proven, as far as I know. I've read plenty of scientific articles in the past that confirm that the animal is still conscious. They've done brain scans and stuff where it's shown that the pain receptors are still firing in the animal who's had its throat cut, and they may be conscious for anywhere from, like, I don't know, 7 to 10 seconds or something like that. I think for things like chickens and larger animals like cows, I think they can be conscious for, I don't know, 30, 40, maybe 50 seconds or so. It might be as much as a minute. I'm not 100% sure exactly in details, but they've done studies on this that show that the pain receptors are still firing. So to say that this is like suddenly instant death, or not instant death, but it's instant not being able to feel, is again bullshit as far as I'm concerned. And I'll find some links and stuff to put in the video for this. But the yeah, that's a bullshit claim that there's no suffering. There definitely is. Where's he getting that from? I mean, what has halal slaughter, what does that have to say about how the animals are kept beforehand? I mean, halal slaughter is done essentially for a market to sort of satiate the demand from Orthodox Muslims, and also in terms of the Jewish kosher slaughter, the same thing. It's basically to fulfill this religious duty. It says nothing about the conditions of the animals who might be on those farms that have that slaughter method. So yeah, citation needed for that little bit of bullshit, Jordan. Yeah, of course you're going to focus on the killing method because that's a cruelty, you fucking idiot.
It's all about choice. I ain't eating halal yet, and I don't have to. You're not forcing me, right? You get a kebab every Saturday up the Turkish. Yeah, but that ain't like halal, is it?
Yeah, because the average person that criticizes halal meat will then go and have a kebab up the local Turkish shop and won't realize that it's also halal food. Yeah, that's a really fair representation of people who are critical about Islam because of this point. Oh dear, it's just so bad. How many have we done now? I think that's all right. We'll do one more, and then I'll leave it at that, and maybe we'll do a second volume of this.
Yeah, what you saying, Dave? Sure, Dave. Well, we've been having discussions and stuff here, and I agree you make some good points. But
really, I mean, he's not even made a point as far as I'm concerned, let alone a good point. But whatever.
How can you be Muslim? You're white. What kind of show? Well, obviously you're born here and you're choosing religion. Why don't you go for Christianity or something like that? Or Islam. These days, truth isn't defined on the patch of land you're born on.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like the first true thing you said, I think, in all of these videos. And yes, it's certainly the case that every religion is going to have people that are going to be of different racial backgrounds. So, yeah. And I'll say this is one thing. Yeah, there might be some people who have this kind of ignorant attitude on it. Although, again, it's not most people who are criticizing Islam they're not this kind of stupid. So again, this straw man caricature of the objections is a bit ridiculous. But yeah, all right, we'll carry on. Yeah, your research into Islam. I remember seeing your conversion video a few years back, and it was basically full of all the same emotional rhetoric that I've seen of every other conversion video. Essentially, you were drifting in your life, drinking too much, using too many drugs. You didn't know what you were doing. There might have even been a relationship breakup in there, and basically, yeah, your life was a little bit fucked up, and you were looking for some kind of anchor, essentially, and Islam, for whatever reason, became your anchor. Now, if you think that's research into Islam, you're kidding yourself. Now, you may have received a lot of dawah and you may have read the books after you've done your shahada, etc., etc. You might have done a little bit of reading beforehand, but yeah, this research normally means copying the dawah apologetics of the people that get you into the religion, and then basically throwing shade on Christianity, Judaism, and your whatever ignorance you have about atheists. So basically, straw manning everyone else's positions. That's the kind of research that you normally do. But whatever, let's carry on.
Islam was sent to all mankind.
Yeah, sent to all mankind. So it was written in an obscure Middle Eastern dialect, given to an illiterate peasant. Well, not peasant, but an illiterate man in the desert. And this was for all mankind, even though, yeah, 80% of the world's population are not Muslim. So it's not really worked out too well.
Jeff, don't talk about that. I've been hearing you talking all that Arab nonsense. And all your new mates aren't white, are they? Many of the originals originate in that part of the world. Christianity is tremendous. Do you think Jesus was an English bloke? Right, you got a point there, but I still think you're weird. Are you asking me these questions because you're considering Islam? You're having a laugh, and you.
Yeah, I mean, you really are having a laugh if you think that. I mean, you think somebody who asks these kind of questions is secretly wanting to join Islam. I mean, that sounds like it might have been projection. Maybe this is the kind of thing that you used to say to other mates of yours that might have been Muslim or something like that, or Muslims you came across. But yeah, most people look at you, Jordan, and they're not thinking, oh yeah, you're a really good example of why I should join Islam. They're really not. Yeah, anyway, so I mean, this is probably like the least worst of his videos, but it's still kind of stupid. I mean, especially when you look at the racial politics angle as well. I mean, bringing up this whole thing, you know, but you're white. I mean, yeah, okay, you might get some stupid people say that, but the entire Dawa scene plays racial politics ridiculously around Islam. I mean, first of all, you accuse everybody who is criticizing Islam of racism, and you lie to people and say that Islam is essentially this wonderful thing that where there's no racism in it and it's baked into the religion, and that's not true as well. So yeah, so you'll sort of do all that nonsense, but then when you do get somebody like Jordan, who is a white Western convert, you get this creepy fetishization where they're paraded around as if this is some, you know, it's got extra value to show that Islam's true because we got a white Westerner to do it. I mean, this I've seen this so many times with you know, with the Dawa types, the Dawa Muslims. So yeah, I mean, although this was like your least bad video, it just shows the hypocrisy, as if it's non-Muslims who are obsessed with race when it comes to Islam. No, it's really not. I'd say it's far more important to people like you, Jordan, than anyone else. Anyway, I think this has gone on long enough, so I'm going to leave it there. I hope you like this video. I mean, they're funny, but they're kind of infuriating at the same time. And he's got a shit ton more of these. So let me know if you want to me to go through any more of these, because there's enough for us, sort of probably 2 or 3 more volumes of this. I quite enjoyed running through them. Let me know in the comments whether you liked them or not, whether you agree, disagree. And give me a like if you're feeling generous, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.